check. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Faculty Lounge. We are glad that you could join us today, and hopefully you've enjoyed some of our elementary school jokes. I got a laugh out of them. Anyway, we're glad you could make it, and we're lucky enough to have Rob Bentley here from the Utah Education Network, and he is going to give us a little demo and a little presentation on Lucid Charts, which is a great tool that is being provided free to educators in Utah. I think you'll really enjoy this and be interested. So with that, I'm going to give the time to Rob. Just a reminder, if you have a comment or a question, feel free to enter that into the chat room, and Rob will leave a little time at the end or answer them on the fly, whatever he chooses. So I can see Rob is ready to go. All yours, Rob.
All right, thanks, Tim. I'm excited today to be able to share with you one of my favorite new tools that I've just recently been learning about in the last couple of weeks. This is a tool that's being offered free to Utah teachers. On the screen there, you should see the typical pricing that is available for this tool, Lucid Chart. You can just get a free demo account, but it's limited in the number of objects per document and also in other ways. And so you can see on the screen that paying users get additional features. There's a basic, pro, and also a team level version of Lucid Chart. But Lucid Software, the company that makes Lucid Chart, they're a Utah company, and they recently offered free access to Lucid Chart, and you get the team version of it for free if you're a Utah educator, and it's also available to students. And this is, I think, just a wonderful deal and a great opportunity to use this software. I think of it as being, well, actually, not just me, most people think of it as being an alternative to Microsoft Visio. But I also see it as being an alternative to Inspiration software, which I really enjoy and like using Inspiration software as well. But I think that Lucid Chart does many of the same things as Inspiration software. So toward the end of the presentation, I'll show you where you can get information on how to sign up for the free team account of Lucid Chart. For now, though, I'm just going to click. I'm signed into my account. I'm going to click on Documents at the top right corner of the screen, basically, and it's going to take me into my account, and you'll see that there's a list there of different Lucid Chart documents that I've created or that I have adapted from the library that they give you when you sign up. In the upper left corner, you'll see that there's a Create button, and Lucid, you can kind of tell that they have mimicked in some ways the layout that Google Docs uses or Google Drive a little bit, and you're able to integrate it into Google Drive if you would like to. And again, there's more information on how to do that I'll set you up with toward the end of the presentation. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Create in the upper left corner. You can see that you can create folders to sort your documents into. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and click that and make another folder. I already have 3 different folders made that I can sort these documents into. But for now, I'm just going to click New Document, and I want you to see just an overview of some of the things that you can create with Lucid Chart. They have all these templates and categories to choose from, and there's just a really good collection here of charts, diagrams, flow charts, mind maps, all sorts of things that you can use, and much of it is prepared for you. You just have to go in and plug in the information. So focusing on the different categories that are probably most education friendly, flowcharts. Of course, you could make some flowcharts that explain different concepts, different cycles and things that are part of your curriculum. You could use the flowcharts templates to do that. There's also Mindmaps. If I click on that, and this is very similar to Inspiration software. That, if you want to do something like what you would do with Inspiration, you would click here where it says blank mind map, or you could use one of the templates that they have. Then they have some Venn diagrams, from the very simplest to pretty complicated Venn diagrams. And then they have a whole category for educational. Now, like I kind of insinuated there, the mind maps, of course, those are educational flowcharts. You could use all of those in education, but let's take a look at what they have specifically in the educational category. They have some just really cool and very useful charts and diagrams that you can use. One of my favorites, I guess, is this one called Investigating a Place in Time. And of course, this would be great in a history class, but in other subjects as well, in language arts and others. And so when you select a template, the first thing they want you to do is to enter a title. So let's say maybe we're studying the Pilgrims and how they came to the New World. I'm just going to title it Plymouth. I click OK, and I can just go in and edit the information that's there. Okay, and they've got this diagram all set up with some of the most important things to consider when you're learning about a specific time and place. And I can just go in and edit all of those. Now let's say I would like more than just this. Maybe I want some additional things that I want to focus on besides population, politics, etc. All you have to do is do what I just showed on the screen. You put your mouse on the very, very edge of the square. In this case, it's kind of an invisible square around the world, and then you just click and drag, and it gives you an arrow from that point. Okay, so I could add additional ideas or things to focus on. Okay, so that's just an example of one of the many templates that are pre-made for you. You just go in and edit them if it fits with your curriculum. There's a clock template for teaching all sorts of, for use in all sorts of different areas. Another favorite of mine is this interactive periodic table. And I'll just pull that up and just show you. The one reason I like this is because it demonstrates some of the neat capabilities that Lucid Chart has. And so it looks like just your standard periodic table, and it is, but if I go over here on the right where it says layers, okay, I'll tell you more about this this menu here at the right a little bit later. But I'm just going to click on layers, and there's a demo button. And if I click that, you'll see that these are all clickable squares. So let's say I don't recognize what CO stands for. I can click that, and it takes me to, in this case, Wikipedia, and tells me that it's cobalt. And so that's a clickable, this is basically an interactive activity. These are clickable objects. And in this case, like I say, it just takes us to Wikipedia, but you could create your own that do all sorts of things. It doesn't have to just take you out to a website. There's other actions that you can have happen when the user clicks in a specified area. I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. A couple other examples. They have a great essay planning chart. Okay, I used to teach a little bit of language arts in addition to Spanish, and this is very useful in teaching how to construct a good essay. And this is all editable, of course. So either the students or the teacher, if the teacher wants to show an example of how to write a good essay, you just double click and start typing. And so this is all editable, what you see on the screen. And of course you can adjust or add different things if you want to change the template a little bit, or just move things around to make them suit your style or the way you want to teach it to your students. So that's another favorite. And then, but there's just so many, way too many for me to highlight during this presentation. There's the hamburger model of paragraph writing, just all sorts of different educational templates that you can use and modify. All right. Now, even though these are wonderful, I think these templates, I think it is important to know how to create from scratch a diagram or a flowchart or whatever you need. So to do that, it is best if you pick the appropriate category. So and sometimes I don't know which of these categories best fits what I want to make. I'm still learning myself how to use Lucid Chart to its full capacity, but if you click on one of these categories, in many cases you'll see an option for a blank version of that template. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go with mind maps, and I'll choose blank mind mapping. And why is it important to pick the appropriate template? Even if it's blank, it is still important to pick the right kind if you can. And the reason why is because depending on what you choose in that previous screen, you'll get different tools here at the left. You'll get different libraries of images and slightly different tools that you can use. So that's why you should at least try to pick a blank template that fits what you're going to be trying to do. All right. So for mind maps, it gives you just a blank shape in the middle of the screen, quite similar to Inspiration software. And of course, you can just click and replace that. Let's say I want to do maybe an all about me diagram to introduce myself to my students at the beginning of the year. Okay, I can just go ahead and type that in. Now you'll see that there are some keyboard shortcuts, and there's a little legend here at the bottom of the screen that you can use Tab to create a child idea. Okay, so I could go in and let's say I want to talk about my family. Now in this case, I don't want another child category. I want a sibling category. So I hit Enter, and it gives me a sibling idea. Okay, so I could just go ahead and keep adding to this mind map. Okay, and I keep hitting the wrong key, and it brings up that screen. But anyway, once you have started your mind map, as you can see, you can move things around, reorder them, and like I showed earlier, you can always add additional arrows and shapes. Now in a mind map, with a mind mapping template, as you can see, when you create your arrow, you just let go, and it automatically adds another shape that you can go ahead and type in. You can also choose different shapes here at the left and just drag those on, and they become part of your mind map. Okay, a couple other things that I really like about Lucid Chart and how you can use it to build your charts. In the upper left corner, there's a link there to Google Images. Okay, so let's say for my mind map here, I would like to have some images that represent some of my hobbies. I can just go in and do a search, and it gives me icons, and it also gives me images from Google. Now, in my experience with Lucid Chart, I found that if an icon is good enough, it's usually best to go with the icon. And the reason why is because it's faster, especially if you're going to be embedding your Lucid Chart on the web, or if it's going to be an online document when you're done. It's I've found it to be better to use icons if you can. I have used images as well, and it's just quite a bit slower when you're embedding them online. But a lot of times, as teachers, a lot of times we don't need these diagrams or charts to be online. We can just print them out and give them to our students that way. But I just think that's really handy to have that link to Google Images right there inside the user interface. Now in the lower left corner, as you can see, there's a menu for pulling in images that that you've archived or that are in the document, maybe other pages of the document, or ones that you've used recently. Okay, these are some images I'll be showing you a little bit later, but it kind of keeps in memory images that you've selected recently, and you can just drag them right back onto the screen, and so that's nice and convenient. Now, in addition to just creating shapes and typing in text, I mean, in a lot of cases, that's all that you'll really need to do is bring on shapes, connect them up, type in text. But there's a whole other area or layer to Lucid Chart that I've recently been exploring, and I'm pretty excited about, and that is that you can use some of these tools here at the left where it says standard. Okay. Now some of these are pretty basic. You can just drag text on the screen. You can drag a box with an editable. It's basically a text box that you can edit. You can put in notes, post-it notes. Okay, so those are kind of basic. But this next one is pretty exciting, at least for me, and that is hotspots. I can click and drag and drop a hotspot on the screen anywhere I want. Okay, so let's say I put it on top of this shape that says family. And then I just need to choose what that hotspot does when it's clicked. Okay, I can have it toggle layers, I can have it show a layer, and I'll talk about layers in just a minute. I can have it link to a page in my Lucid Chart document. I can have it go to an external link, or I can have it linked to an email. So for me, this is what makes it quite a bit more exciting, is that you can have some interaction. You can create some buttons basically that do different things in your Lucid Chart document. So let's take a look at an example that I made for this. I'm just still kind of playing around with Lucid Chart and trying to see what it's capable of. But here's just a very simple example that I worked on recently. And like I mentioned earlier, I used to be a Spanish teacher, and so here's a Spanish example. Let's say we're studying the animals in Spanish. With this Lucid Chart chart that I've made, I've just put some words for different Spanish animals, and right now if you click on them, nothing happens, and that's because I'm in the chart view. But if I go over to the right and click on this layers button and click demo, then it goes into this interactive mode, and now I can click, and the words that I click on bring up a picture for what the words mean. Now this was quite easy to create, and it was pretty quick and simple once I understood how to use layers and how to use some of these actions and things in the hotspots. This was very, very quick to create and pretty easy. And I'll show you a little bit about that in just a second. But I also wanted, before I move on from that, I wanted to just quickly point out that whatever you make in Lucid Chart, one of the nice things about it is that you can go ahead and embed whatever you create on your website, whether it be my UEN or an alternative. And notice that the hotspots still work. And so with just a little bit of learning and practice with Lucid Charts, you could create, or your students could create, an interactive kind of activity with your content. your curriculum, and they could post that online, almost like the students are creating learning resources for their own class. Okay, so just to show you the basics of how I created this, you can probably imagine a lot of it. I just used these text boxes, dragged them on the screen, typed in the text, and I'm going to go ahead and add a sixth animal here, El Tigre. So I just go ahead and type that in. And now the trick for having the pictures appear was I had to put them on a different layer. Okay, so you remember over here on the right side of the screen there's a layer button, and I just click that, and I'm going to add a layer. And I'll call this Tiger. And then with the Tiger layer selected, I'm just going to do a Google search for Tiger. I'll just click and drag and drop that in where I want it to appear. And then one of the things that's a little bit tricky about layers, okay, is you have to decide, do you want it to be visible to start or not visible at the start? And I don't want it to be visible, so I unclicked this little checkbox here in the upper right corner where it says Tiger. I unchecked that box, and then I'm going to click. There's a little eyeball. I don't know if you can see that, just to the left of where the button that says Demo. I clicked on that, and what that does is it syncs what you see on your screen. So whatever state you have your pictures and your layers at this point will be synced, and it'll remember that, basically. Okay, so now all I have to do is add a hotspot, and I could do it a couple of different ways. I could click and drag this hotspot right onto El Tigre, like I showed earlier, okay, with my example about my family. But instead, there's an easier way. If I just right-click on a shape, I can choose Create Hotspot, and it automatically fills the shape, matches it up, and then I can choose an action. So I want it to toggle a layer. Which layer? The Tiger layer. And I click Done. So now when I click Demo, it should work, unless I made a mistake. So you can see when I click on El Tigre, the tiger appears, and it toggles it back and forth. Now that's just one example. You could follow those same steps if you want, but instead of having it toggle a layer, which would make something appear or disappear, you could instead link to a different page in your document. Notice in the upper right corner, there's a little plus button. Okay, and if I click that little plus button, I can create a second page in my document. And so I could connect those two pages, and the students could get from page 1 to page 2 just by clicking a hotspot. So that's another idea, another example of how you can use these hotspots. Or, like the periodic table example, if you want to, you could use an external link. So I could just click external link and type in or copy paste in a website, and if they click now on the hotspot, it'll take them to that destination, to that location. So this is my favorite part, really, of Lucid Chart, is just this interactivity that you can build into your diagrams, into your flow charts, and anything else that you create in Lucid Chart. And there's just a lot of different ways you can use this. If you get a little imaginative and a little creative with the tools here, you could create some really exciting learning objects, basically, for your students. And of course, then you could get the students to create some as well. So let's take a look at a couple of the other options that you have in Lucid Chart. And I'm going to go back to my documents. In Lucid Chart, let's say you're working on a document. Here's one that I made quite a while ago. it's basically on, conjugating verbs in Spanish, the different steps that you need to take to do it correctly. So let's say I need help on this, which I do. I could invite members of my team to work on this with me. So in the upper right corner, it says share. If I click that, notice that there's an option to invite, email, users, or groups. So if I click there in the text box underneath, I can choose the Utah Education Network team, and anyone on that team would be able to work on this document with me. Now that's the nice thing about getting the, remember at the beginning I showed that the Lucid software has offered us the team version of Lucid Chart for free because we're educators. That's the nice thing about it. You could set up a Lucid Chart team for your school or for your department at the school, and you could very easily share documents back and forth, just how I'm showing you here. Okay, so just by clicking that team is invited to work on it with me. You can also email specific people, and they would be invited as well to work on that document with you. Or you could generate a link that anyone could click and access. You can also publish your Lucid Charts as a web page, as a PDF, and there's some other options too. Now the way I got my my Spanish animals Lucid Chart onto my UEN page is I used this third option, Embed. Okay, and I clicked Publish Link, and it gave me the code that I needed to copy and paste into my UEN. Okay, so. And notice you can change the size, the dimensions of your the object that you're embedding, basically, or the chart that you're going to embed. So you just copy that, paste it into a MyUEN portlet using the HTML button, and it'll be visible right there on your MyUEN page. And like I said before, the steps are pretty similar for other website builders like Weebly or a few others. So I've probably been ignoring a few of your questions. Let's see. Let's take a look at where you can go to get this. If you're interested in using Lucid Chart in your classroom, you can get it through UEN. You just go to uen.org/Lucid, and this is what you'll see. And there's an overview for K-12. Further down the page, there's an overview for higher education, and this is also available for higher education. And there's detailed information here about the steps you should take if you want to use this for free. And these are steps for if you have a Google Apps account. In my case, I didn't really want to go through the Google Apps account for this. I just wanted to apply for a team account, and so I followed these other steps, further down below. But basically, you'll set up an account, and then you request an educational upgrade. Okay, you see here there's a link that says fill out the educational request form, and it's pretty quickly I was accepted as getting the free education upgrade. So I hope that this has kind of gotten you interested in Lucid Chart. I'm excited about it. I'll be using it pretty heavily in one of my classes, and I'll use it in other classes that I teach as well on a more limited basis. But I really think this is a great tool, a way to make text more visual. Just like inspiration software, that's what that does. It takes the text that you want to share and it helps you make it more visual, and this does a great job of doing the same thing. I think it would be great in the classroom as a way to do brainstorming with the students, or the students in small groups brainstorming. It's great for graphic organizers, cause and effect kind of graphic organizers, or Venn diagrams, things like that. And it's also great for visualizing concepts or ideas, making something that's not naturally visual more visual, so it's easier to remember, easier to understand. And then also the example that I showed about, creating basically a learning object. This is a very simple example, but I love that idea of, you and your students being able to make your own learning objects that are interactive at some level. Are there any other questions that I didn't see? It looks like, yeah, there's some questions about an iPad app. Yes, there is an iPad app, and I've tested it, and it works quite well. There was a little bit of a delay every once in a while in what I was trying to do and the results, but other than that, it works really well, and it is free. Any other questions that I didn't see? When you get a chance to check this out, one of the things that you'll notice is you can use this in Teams, and in the lower left corner there is a chat option. Okay, you can see here in the lower left corner you can click on chat, and as a team you can be working simultaneously on the diagram and chatting back and forth. So that's one of the other nice things. And then the final thing that I want to point out is here at the right side of the screen, on this toolbar at the right, there's a whole bunch of kind of more professional tools that you can use. So for example, if you click on a shape and then click through these tools, it gives you lots of other options. You can make the line width thicker. You can quickly change the position or the shape of your objects. So check out, this is the next step really to learn more about Lucid Chart. Check out these tools at the right. So thanks for attending this faculty lounge. I hope it's been worth your time, and I hope you'll check out Lucid Chart. So I'm back over to Tim.
Well, great, Rob. That was really good. It's two things that stand out to me is one, how amazing these tools are getting that we can access right through the browser, and this was a great example of that. And the fact that this is free to educators and students in Utah, that's a nice thing for this company to do. I'm just going to pull up the schedule here for next week because we have a sort of a sibling tool to Lucid Charts. It's called Lucid Press. And Lucid Press, and here's the schedule coming up. Mindy's going to share Lucid Press with us. And just to give you a heads up, it's a web-based layout and design application, kind of like Lucid Charts, but more of a tool that might be an alternative to something like Adobe InDesign or Microsoft Publisher. And one of the neat things about it is when you create a newsletter or a poster in Lucid Press, it automatically resizes it and fits in multiple devices, which is pretty impressive. All right, so with that, guys, we're going to wrap up. Thanks everyone for coming, and we hope to see you next week.